Is he assist? Is the chair a panelist? Okay. What's the chair's name?
No, bring it. I think I'll not buy from my side.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on our locations. And thank you for being part of the second part of our panel on digital neocolonialism, capitalism, and global information technology. And this is just the second part of our presentation. And please, before we go ahead, do I have Mrs. Mujida Abdulalim Olagoju in the room?
Yes, please.
Oh, you are the one. I almost missed it because I got the information from the people that are on site that probably your session, your presentation was moved to another session or another panel. So I just wanted to kind of confirm before I go ahead to probably call another person. Thank you so much. It's good to have everybody. And before we move on, for those of us that are joining our panel for the first time today, I did mention in the morning that the essence of this panel is to examine what we do in Africa as a continent and as a people and see how we can manage the development in information technology globally in a way to retain, promote, market, and rebrand our identity as a people. Maintain our cultural identity, our social identity, our political identity, of course, our religious identity. We have so many identities as Africans. So this panel is not against technology, no, but it's about using technology to redefine our identity as Africans. And I want to say that we're supposed to have 4 presentations today, but the first person would not be able to present. She is one of the people with me that we had challenges with our visa renewal, and that's why we couldn't join us physically at the University of Lagos over there. So she is in the hospital right now. Something came up and she needed to attend to her health. So that is why Tolulokpe Adelabu from the University of Wisconsin-Madison would not be able to make a presentation today. And so we will have 3 presentations, and each presenter, because of this development, I think we can still go for like about 14 minutes, 13, 14 minutes, so that we have enough time to interact with your papers. So, yes, so background noise. Okay, it's from your end over there. So, the first presenter today will be. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. So the first presenter today, according to my schedule here, will be Elijah Aziz from the National Library of Nigeria. And he will be making a presentation on the digital preservation of indigenous knowledge. And as Elijah is in charge of e-library and e-resources at the National Library headquarters in Abuja. So Elijah was the former national president of LIS students in Nigeria. He is very, very vast in the use of technologies, and he has been moving around all over the country, conducting trainings for all categories of technology users on how to make use of technology. So I welcome you, Elijah, for your presentation.
Okay, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone from where we are all connecting from. I would like to apologize for not making it down to Lagos State for the physical session. Thank you, Mr. John, and thank you, the organizers of this conference. I would like to make a brief correction on the title of my paper, which is Preserving Indigenous Knowledge Through Digital Means for the Sustainability of African Identities. Did you get that, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
Noted.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So will you be sharing my slide, or can I do that from my end, sir?
You should be able to do that.
Yes. I don't see mine.
Are you sharing already?
Yes, I'm trying to do that.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
I can see your slide from here.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I would like to, first of all, apologize. I think this is my first time, attending this session. This is the fact that I'm currently writing my exams. So I wouldn't know if there are things expected of me, or I should just run through my slides, sir, before I begin.
Just run through your slide. You can choose wherever method. You have 13 minutes. 2 minutes gone already.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Okay, so my paper is on preserving indigenous knowledge through digital means for the sustainability of African identities. You all agree with me that indigenous knowledge systems are important repositories of knowledge, wisdoms, beliefs, mights, that have sustained African communities for various generations. This system encompasses a vast array of knowledge about agriculture, medicine, economics, environmental management, social organizations, and cultural traditions. In the face of globalization, urbanization, and climate change, this knowledge system faces significant stress. Digital preservation offers a powerful tool for safeguarding and transmitting indigenous knowledge, ensuring a continuing and relevant for future generations. The importance of indigenous knowledge in Africa. Environmental sustainability. Indigenous knowledge holds the key to sustainable practices for managing natural resources, biodiversity, conservation, and climate change adaptation. Traditional ecological knowledge often provides insights into the intricate workings of ecosystem and the interconnectedness of life, health, and well-being. Indigenous medicine systems have long provided effective treatment for various ailments, drawing upon a deep understanding of local flora and fauna. This system offers alternative approaches to healthcare, particularly in remote areas where limited access to modern medicines. We also have cultural diversity as an importance of indigenous knowledge in Africa. We have economic development, as well as promotion of cultural awareness. Our younger generations needs to be aware of our cultures, the way of life of our forefathers. So indigenous knowledge assists our younger generations to be aware of our cultural values in Africa. We have some challenges, in preserving this indigenous knowledge. We have gone through their importance. However, it is important that we understand the challenges if we must adopt some digital means to sustain our cultural values in Africa. So we have loss of languages. As younger generations adopt dominant languages, indigenous language are facing extinctions. This loss of language carries with it a significant loss of associated knowledge, cultural practices, and oral traditions. An example of this is indigenous language of the Abuja people, which is, I think, Gbagi. Study has shown that most of the young generations now, they can't speak Gbagi fluently. Rather, they speak English and Hausa. Sorry for that. They speak English and Hausa mostly. So, effort has been put in place to start training or to start introducing Gbagi as a language to be studied in most of the schools, secondary schools, primary schools, and junior secondary schools here in Abuja. So we have modernization and globalization. Rapid urbanization, technological advancements, and globalization are often perceived as threats to traditional ways of life. This can lead to the marginalization of indigenous knowledge system and the adoption of external practices. I'm sure we do not want this. Then we have lack of documentation. Many indigenous knowledge systems are primarily transmitted orally, making them vulnerable to loss due to the passing of elders. Lack of documentation and formal recognition can hinder the preservation and transmission of this knowledge. Many of the elders, are dead, or those alive have not even been able to put down anything on our culture. So it is important that we begin to document, begin to partner, the rural areas, the local authorities. By the time we get to our recommendation, we are going to discuss, these strategies. So we also have the role of digital means in preserving indigenous knowledge. The first one is digitization of oral traditions. Recording and archiving oral histories, myths, songs, and stories using audio and visual technologies allows for the preservation and dissemination of this invaluable knowledge. Second one is development of digital platforms. Creating online platforms dedicated to sharing indigenous knowledge allows for easy access and dissemination of information, promoting cultural exchange and learning opportunities. I'm also glad that many African countries and governments are looking towards this direction. We have some projects by we have National Repository of Nigeria, which is basically done to preserve our cultural heritage. We have staffs of National Library visit many of these rural areas, they did interviews, they conduct, they visit some of the historical places, and put them into video recording. We have some on YouTube and the likes. I think the recent one they did was in Dawa, where we have a couple of them visited Dawa community. It's an ancient town that has an important value to Nigeria as a whole. So they have it documented, interviews were conducted with the local authorities and the likes. So we also have similar thing done in Ghana. Ghana has a digital preservation platform. We also have similar one in Kenya. Kenya also, which was established in 2004. Okay, so we have community engagements involving indigenous communities in the design and implementation of digital preservation initiative ensures that their knowledge is documented in cultural, sensitive, and respectful way. Okay, so this is very, very important. If you intend digitizing, cultural heritage of a particular community, you must engage the community itself. The youth, the elders. You must understand the way they want the culture to be preserved or how the message should be passed. For instance, in Yoruba land, if you want to greet an elder, you must prostrate. So it is important that we communicate the way the community has been practicing it from generations to generation. So we also have interactive learning experiences, utilizing digital technology to create interactive learning experiences such as virtual reality, simulations, or online games can make indigenous knowledge more engaging and accessible to younger generation. Okay, so we have some case studies. Now, I'll just run through them. I think I did mention some. We have indigenous knowledge system project in South Africa. This particular project was launched by South African government in 2004, and it is to develop, protect, and promote indigenous knowledge. So there is a policy to that effect, that was signed by their assembly. This initiative has digitized a vast amount of information or traditional medicine. So it is also important that government institutions, are involved in the digitization exercise. For instance, this particular project, the Indigenous Knowledge System, is under the Ministry of Science and Technology of South Africa. So it is important for it to be able to stand. So the initiative has digitized a large amount of information on traditional medicine, agriculture, and environmental practices. The project involves local communities in data collections and dissemination, ensuring cultural sensitivity. We also have digital archives of the Maasai oral tradition in Kenya. I'm sure Maasai is not is a place that we are all familiar with. Their history is all over the internet. It is highly dominated by women, and their efforts their efforts in protecting their heritage despite the invasion of various foreigners in their land. They were still able to maintain their culture, their style, their beliefs, and the like. So we have a project that was dedicated for that particular purpose. It is a digital archive of the Maasai oral tradition in Kenya. This initiative documents the rich oral tradition of the Maasai people, including their history, might, and social structure. The digital archive allows for easy access to these stories, promoting cultural preservation and education. Especially, the interesting part is their art of bead making. They are very skillful when it comes to bead making. So we also have the African Digital Heritage Project in Ghana, which I spoke about earlier. This project focuses on preserving and disseminating the rich cultural heritage of Ghana, including traditional music, dance, and crafts. The project utilizes a combination of online platform, mobile apps, and interactive installations. We have a lot of projects that have been done here in Nigeria also. So we have one that was dedicated to Ekpene, Ikot Ekpene, which is located in Akwa Ibom, Nigeria. It's a collaborative project that was launched to digitally document the rich oral tradition of the Efik people through audio recordings and video documentations. Generations, old folktales, legends, and proverbs were captured and preserved for future generations. And we have identifying medical plants. The project involved documenting the traditional medicine knowledge of the Yoruba people, who have a rich history of using plants for healing purpose. The project team collaborated with local herbalists and healers to identify the plants used for purposes. Like I said earlier, we also have similar projects done in National Library of Nigeria. So if you visit the National Repository of Nigeria, which is basically set up for preserving our cultural heritage, you would come across a lot indigenous knowledge that has been packaged, either as a video file or text file. So we have the ethical considerations in digital preservation of indigenous knowledge. Informed consent, that is the first thing. We need to ensure that indigenous communities provide informed consent for the collections, use, and sharing of their knowledge. So you must, if you want to embark on digital preservation of indigenous knowledge of any community, you must seek the consent of the communities, the elders, so that they can cooperate, they can give you the necessary cooperation you need to succeed in digitizing the indigenous knowledge. We also have cultural sensitivity, respecting the cultural value and beliefs on indigenous communities when documenting and sharing their knowledge. There is a particular community where you must cover your head, irrespective of your belief. Immediately you enter the community, you must cover your head. So if you are there to document or digitally preserve their cultural heritage, you must respect their culture. It's important. There are some communities where you don't wear sandals. You must respect it if you want to, get the right information from the community. Yeah. Okay, it's like I'm hearing it. Okay, thank you. Okay, we also have data ownership, establishing clear ownership rights over the data and ensuring that indigenous communities have control over how their knowledge is used and shared. So it is also important that they are given the data ownership. The data you collected are not yours, but that of the community. So we also have access and benefit sharing, ensuring that indigenous communities benefit from the use and commercialization of their knowledge. We have digital security, protecting the integrity and security of digital data from unauthorized access or manipulation. Then this has to do with the platform where you want to launch the digitized indigenous knowledge. You have to set accessibility is important, and you must set it. Do you want people to have access to the content, or you want them to, for instance, in the case of monographs, do you want them to have access to just the abstract or just to a particular chapter? So you must define this very well while your platform. We also have recommendations for effective digital preservation and strategies. We have community-led initiative involving indigenous communities in all stages of digital preservation projects, ensures cultural relevance and ownership. How do we do this? It's important. The first thing you need to do is you need to bridge the digital divide of that particular community by organizing some digital literacy program for them. There is no way you would want to embark on such projects and the community itself will not understand what the project is about. So they must be digitally inclined. We also have multimodal documentation. Using a combination of audio, video, text, and images allow for a richer and more comprehensive representation of indigenous knowledge. So we don't just base on writing. We have some of our audience that are blind, some that are deaf. So it is important for us to put into consideration, various multimedia to present digitized cultural heritage. We also have open access and sharing. Making digital archive freely accessible to the public promotes the dissemination and wider appreciation of indigenous knowledge system. We talked earlier about awareness. Our digitization efforts must encourage cultural awareness, reaching out to younger generations, letting them to understand the values of our cultures and why they must embrace it. So we also have capacity building, providing training and support to indigenous communities in digital preservation techniques, empowers them to manage and share their knowledge effectively. You also have language preservation, supporting the digitization of indigenous language, include the development of online dictionaries and language learning resources. which is crucial for preserving our cultural identity. So I think UNESCO is doing something about language preservation. I think they are working with National Library and some other organization, trying to, there's a particular effort, done by National Library of recent map of various languages in Nigeria. So we have about 200 plus that has been done. They are making efforts to preserve languages, and not just languages, dialects as well. So in conclusion, the digital preservation of indigenous knowledge is vital and important for sustaining African identities and ensuring the continuity of traditional practices, wisdom, and cultural heritage. Digital technologies offer powerful tools for documenting, sharing, and transmitting this knowledge to future generations. It is also important to approach this initiative with sensitivity and respect for the cultural value and belief of indigenous communities. Future efforts should also focus on strengthening partnership between indigenous communities, researchers, and technology developers to create sustainable and inclusive digital preservation programs that empowers communities and promote the equitable sharing of knowledge. Thank you so much for your time and from listening, everyone.
Good. Thank you, Elijah, for a great presentation. Can you just kindly stop sharing your slide?
Oh.
That was a good one. Just stay online. We'll come back to you very soon so that we interact with your paper, so that you get some feedbacks. People will ask questions, recommendations, and all that. Thank you for a good presentation, for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we move to the next panelist, and our next panelist is all the way from the Ahmadu Bello University in Nigeria. That's in Zaria, Kaduna State. And she will be presenting on a topic that says a call for canon formation in literary analysis under content in digital humanities. So I welcome Mrs. Mujida Abdul Alim Olagunju for her presentation. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, and a good afternoon to everyone. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, I can.
Okay. So the title of my paper is Literary Adaptation, a call for canon formation in contemporary literary analysis under content in the digital humanities. Next slide. This paper explores the growing trend of literary adaptations in literature and film studies, and the growing need of canons to analyze digital formats under the field of digital humanities. As technology advances on different digital platforms and digital products have become more accessible, the field of literary analysis has witnessed a significant shift in focus towards popularity and the examination of literary adaptations across various media forms. The way literary texts are accessed, disseminated, and consumed. These literary adaptations transform traditional text and our printed text into new forms and mediums, including intertextual films, television series, interactive digital narratives. So basically what I'm trying to look at in this paper, next slide, is the fusion that has already occurred. A lot of us have been used to reading our sources and our materials on text. But contemporary from the very 20th century, we've been using a lot on the internet. We have been consuming materials from the internet, and we have been reading our text as films. We have been reading our text as audiobooks, and we have been consuming them on our laptops. So this change from the print text as book to these new digital platforms is also what has birthed what we now call digital humanities. And so there's a fusion. There's a fusion of literary studies and digital humanities. And so this paper is looking at the need for more studies under under digital humanities. The study examines digital adaptations and an aspect in digital humanities. Digital humanities is an era of scholarly activity at the intersection of computing or digital technologies and the discipline of humanities. For example, literary adaptations should be analyzed in the field of digital humanities due to what I've said earlier, the change process from multimedia enhanced by technology, artificial intelligence, and other forms of AI and machine learning. For example, some of us have read Oedipus Rex by Sophocles, and we've also watched the film, The Gods Are Not to Blame. Although this was first a print, it moved from the print to the play, and then from the play to the film. We also have Popular Hibiscus by Chimamanda Adichie, which a lot of us read as print, as the book, and we also consumed as the film. Another very more recent book is Death and the King's Horseman by Wole Soyinka, which was recently adapted, I think in 2023 by Mo Abudu as a film. And we have seen that in these adaptations, there's a need for us to critically begin to analyze these adaptations in order to understand literature and literary studies. And also audiobooks, like I explained before. There's a growing need for us to understand that as literary scholars, when we are examining literature and using registers and theories from English, from media studies, from theater, when we're talking about audiobooks, we begin to wonder, we begin to ask ourselves the question of analysis. And the first question or the first answer that will come to our mind is, audiobooks have to do with bytes, audiobooks have to do with music. And so we'll have to begin to look for theories and analysis from either the music studies or the music school in order to understand and to analyze such texts. For adaptation and African identities, it is, as we were listening to the keynote speaker talk about Afrocentricity yesterday, it is important for us to understand that it is through adaptations, because the African identity is embedded in the new digitalization of this text. And so we need to have Afrocentrism, like I also coined linkerature. Linkerature is the internet and the fusion of the internet with literature. So I also said it's called literature. She used Afrocentrism. We've been talking so much about localization, and all these words are just coming to explain to us the fusion of the audio, the text, the multimedia, and AI, and this is still growing. But as we grow and we continue to consume this text, the issue of analysis comes in. How do we analyze this text? And how do we analyze it with our own identities? Because we all know that Western education has been taught to us. Most of the things that we are learning was brought down to us. So, but because digital humanities, AI, multimediality is something that is contemporary. And as it's changing in Africa, it is also changing in the global north. So before the global north begin to give us the adaptation analysis to adapt to analyze our own scripts, I think as literary scholars and adaptation scholars, we should begin to think in this way on how to begin to analyze and the registers and the theories in which we want to begin to analyze our own African literary adaptations. I also call for, like I said, diffusion of departments so that we know we have media studies, we have media technology, we have literature, and we have theater, all embedded in one. So there's a need for us to sit and look at this vision in order to come out with our new pedagogies, new canons, and new registers for studying African literary adaptations. So this is my prescription for the adaptation analysis, for us to bring canons and to form curriculums and to form new pedagogies under digital humanities to study our texts. Next slide. So I'm just showing some of the ideas which are propounded already on the fusion of adaptation analysis and the fusion of digital humanities faculty. Please, next slide. The digital humanities faculty to coexist alongside the text analysis, because it's not something that I feel we can just move into, but we can gradually promote ourselves from textual analysis into adaptation analysis. But before then, both can coexist until we eventually move on to them, canon formation. So like I've said earlier, the need for canons and new pedagogies and curriculums to be formed under for the study of digital humanities or literature is what is the prescription this paper is putting across. Thank you for listening.
Great one. Thank you very, very much. That was quite good and high opener. You've opened our eyes. That was an eye opener. So you open our eyes to different dimensions in DH. And for those of us probably in the room over there and those of us online, DH is another multidisciplinary area that is very, very wide and vast. And I begin to see in certain ways that the way I see DH this time around is kind of similar to the way we see SDGs, where almost every discipline or human endeavor where technology is used to perform certain tasks can actually fit into it. And you can see a powerful delivery from that. Thank you so much, Doctor, for that presentation. We come back to you very soon so that we interact with you on the paper. And
Thank you,
yeah, of course, you're welcome. So the next presenter is an independent researcher from Kunda Kids Africa. And she is Dr. Martina Ochua Omorodion. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that name very well. So Ms. Dr. Martina Ochua Omorodion. And she will be making a presentation on storytelling as a way of knowing, decolonizing EdTech through indigenous African knowledge for children. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you for pronouncing my name very well. Good afternoon, everyone.
Can we have the camera focus on her a little bit more? Is it possible? For our online participants, actually, because it's like the camera is showing. Perfect, perfect, good, good. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So before I proceed, the nature of conferences that we used to attend before we share our paper, I don't have that. Please, this is not a marketing activity. It's just for you to have an idea of what I'll be talking about. So please feel free to share it. I'll keep my question with that and I will do that so you get a better understanding. So I will be talking about decolonizing. I looked at my topic along the way, but I think I was talking about storytelling as a way of knowing, decolonizing children media through indigenous African knowledge of children. And like I said earlier, my name is Martina, and I'm an independent scholar from Kunda Kids. Storytelling is one of the oldest forms of art. It has existed for centuries and for so long. From man has always felt the need to tell stories, to explain the things around him. And coming down to our side, African oral literature is a powerful and viable art form, which can serve as a tool of decolonization. So I think stories have influenced the works of prominent writers such as Chinua Achebe, Neo Sundari, Flora Wampa, and many of them, they use their stories to debunk Eurocentric views and produce alternative narratives steeped in African philosophy. They corrected the incorrect projection of the West and Euro-America as the sole source of knowledge, which hinders and silences the realities of non-Western cultures. This paper, next slide, please. The object of this paper is actually to answer the call by Tony Falola when he sent his book, Decolonizing. He said we should find other means of decolonization beyond theories and the language of academics. So I'm setting out to show that Konaki's concept is a deliberate act of decolonizing knowledge production and children media. We'll also show how it recenters and silences the African worldview in the formative period of childhood. A quick literature review. So there's been a lot of study on children media, and one thing that scholars have agreed totally is that media impacts children positively and negatively. And when we're talking about children media, I'm talking about all forms of media, including books, print books, digital books, radio, television, film, movie, and all. There are numerous studies on children media, which has led to theories such as cultivation theory, identification theory, cognitive theory, and social identity theory. These theories look at how media influences children and contributes to identity formation in them. There's one thing that we have seen, and that is, posted in 2008 states that racial representation exists in children media, and that children media sometimes can be retrogressive. And that this racial prejudice and white hegemonic culture in children media affects the identity of these children. So there were various researches that showed that even from as little as 3 years old, children are able to identify difference between races. In fact, there's a particular study that had to do with dolls, and the children associated white dolls with safety and power, and black dolls with evil and bad, even though these children were both white and black children. So we also hear say that racial stereotypes push colonial agenda by reinforcing inferiority complex and superiority models in children. There's this the agenda that the white or colonialists are dominant and black is inferior. Racial bias is also inherent in children media, like I said before. Apart from that, it's important that we know that children media can be used to further colonial legacy and racial oppression by reflecting the concept of dominant white and inferior black. Why decolonize? Why do you want to decolonize children media? Stereotypical thinking and racial thinking is based on the information one is exposed to. So the constant information, and that was cultivation, further cultivation theory. The more information you are exposed to, the more you start forming and believing stereotypes. Then the idea of a superior white male is the standard, and that is the basis for institutional and structural racism. Eurocentrism equates modernity with the modern way of life and culture. And this Western culture teaches us that privilege to define for the rest of the world. And that is why we've created words like democracy and many other ones. And they hold as a standard to define for other people without thinking about their own cultural identities and their own worldview. Colonial legacies fail to recognize the indigenous history, culture, and knowledge as important counterweight to Western ways of knowing. These colonial legacies entrench inequalities, which continue to be manifested in racism, economic exploitation, patriarchy, and neocolonialism. To decolonize. So how do we decolonize? In this case, I'm going to quote from two different persons, two different scholars. The research 2020 says that to decolonize, we must continually unlearn, reimagine, and reshape the structures, norms, and values that have emerged from Western colonialism, which exists now as colonialism. These are the forms that have remained even after colonialism has ended. But these structures that are present in our everyday life, our everyday economies, our society, and our culture, it is there. We must delete from this colonialism because it occurs both at society level and the individual level. It also requires that we, the individuals, interrogate daily how we are reproducing systems of coloniality in our lives. For instance, 2 or 3 recommends when she spoke about decolonizing social work curriculum in the university. She suggested the use of the Ubuntu framework in decolonizing social work. In this case, I am taking Walola's recommendation that we can use oral literature to achieve that. Decolonizing children media through indigenous African knowledge. The recurring images, as I said earlier, that children consume, their literature and media create in them preconceptions and create powerful impressions. And like we have said, powerful Western media has created several stereotypes that continue to exist to date, even in the so-called inclusive and diverse media. These racial stereotypes define the daily lives of young people, and that's why, for instance, in America, there's still racial bias in some of these things. It is what we see. If you put big in Hollywood film, more often than not, the bad guy, even among the bad guys or the criminal gangs, they will mostly be Black young men, while the superhero will be the white male. So these stereotypes define the identities of children who consume them. They continue to be replicated in the books, television, film, and social media that we consume daily. For instance, a well-known definition of Africa is that Africa is deprived, we are suffering from disease, we are war-torn, and we are hungry. Okay. So to continue, it said traditional African culture is not obsolete. This is a quote from Opewo, who says that traditional African culture is not obsolete, but relevant for articulating contemporary needs and goals. Oral literature can be a tool for epistemic liberation, which can be adopted in pedagogy for preschools to universities to achieve indigenous solutions. And here I make what to say that Kundakis offers a blend of Afrocentricity, education, and technology through its content for the modern child. Okay, here are some pictures that I've gathered, and I see here that popular children media or popular children content does not reflect the diversity of the children who consume it. You can see that it was from some pictures that have been online. If you look at it, most of the cartoons our children consume now on TV have, white characters. Even when they try to be inclusive, I have put a picture of an inclusive cartoon over there. You can see that is I don't want to mention the brand, but after there was a bit of backlash and criticism, that was when they produced the third picture there. But if you look at that picture now, you will see that the baby in front is a white male, and behind it is the Black male. And that is supposed to be inclusive and diverse. So they also even try to put, there's somebody dressed in a gown, so we can say she's from maybe Asian culture, and they try to put it there. But that position of the white male being edged will always remain like that. It's central. They are not giving you that as well. Then the next slide, please. In contrast to that, this is part of Kodak Kids content for children. So Kodak Kids has 3 books, a digital app. The digital app contains stories for children from African stories from children, collection of folk tales. We have stories about confidence, reading confidence, and all of that. Apart from that, we have 6 African languages on Kodak Kids app. It uses games, interactive games, to teach children African language. We have Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, Kiswahili, Luganda, and Swi. languages on the app, and also audiobooks that are suitable for children that cannot read and that can listen to. Apart from that, there's a YouTube-led YouTube channel for preschoolers. So the nursery you create use Afrobeat and Amapiano as the background for these nursery rhymes. Apart from that, our nursery rhyme children about Africa, we have a song that talks about all the countries in Africa and many other things, and they are proud of their identity. So when you see our characters, they look boldly. Next slide, please. Confidence. That's Kunda. Kunda means love. It's a word from the Akoli culture in Uganda. So the hair, you can look at the hair and the face. Even the girl, that's Candy. You can see Candy's high forehead like my own. So we don't put that African identity how it's supposed to be. That fella is a confident mathematics, is a life science. They are educated, they are smart, you know. So it's not, you are not getting that image of that backward inferior black. Apart from that, our books, like I've shared to you, build some African stories. We pick from African stories. We also use African history. We reinvent African history to create stories for children. Next slide, please. So by using African heroes, so we have historical heroes like Queen Amina, we have Shaka Zulu. So it doesn't have to necessarily be what Shaka Zulu did in history, because you know he was a warrior and all of that. In this story, for instance, Shaka Zulu learns to dance. Teaches children about confidence and embracing your own unique identity. Our young hero here, Shaka Zulu did not know how to dance. Every time he dances in the funny way and people laugh at him. But his parents made him understand that everyone's style is unique. So it tells you to embrace your unique identity. Just like Sarah Culture State talks about other culture, and a young girl that was afraid to share our culture, but from Nigeria and Sweden. We also understand that the world is a smaller place now. It's multicultural, it's multilingual, so you cannot look at anything from just one angle. Thank you very much for listening.
Wow. That was a great one, Doc. Thank you so much for that great presentation. And I know we're going to interact with your paper, but before we move to the last presenter for another powerful presentation, culture is very powerful. And we've got to do a lot in Africa to ensure that we prevent and we protect our culture. We might not really know how valuable and rich our culture is until another person appreciates our culture. So that was a great one. Thank you so much for that powerful presentation. Actually, I have a question for you when we begin to interact. So we move to the next presenter all the way from Precious Cornerstone University in Ibadan, I think. Precious Cornerstone University, Ibadan. Now, yeah, and Dr. Gbemi Moses Sodeyinde will be presenting on trade, liberalization, and globalization, the Africa experience. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm waiting for the moderators to share the slides.
For the screen.
Yes.
Okay, good.
While we are doing that, my topic is trade liberalization and globalization, African experience. This paper is basically on adopted content. It was screen at that time. Moses, you answer that. So, okay, let me go on. All right, okay, thank you. So the trade liberalization, this paper adopted content analysis and all forms of videos and pictures have been currently removed because of the paper is still ongoing, and the unethical issues, or let me say articles that surrounded these paper, this research. We also motivated, this paper was motivated because of the experience that we have had in Nigeria, that what we are sold to, that globalization and trade liberalization supposed to take us to our destination. However, we have a different story to tell in Africa. We have had a lot of trade in Africa, even though our first experience in globalization, we have had that as early as 17th century, during the cocoa, boom era, where the trade was so permissive and it was everywhere during the cocoa boom. But this paper, before we go ahead, we need to look at what exactly to talk about the globalization and the concept, because of the perspective in which different people have attributed or given to this topic. Globalization simply means growing integration of economics and society around the world as a result of flows of goods and services, capital, labor, and information technology. And the term globalization refers to integration of the world economy through trade, financial, and flows and know-how. Trade liberalization and globalization. These two concepts, there are this argument that global trade, globalization, supposed to open up our economy, we open our systems for us to trade. It has also been argued that globalization as a concept, it has taken us backward rather than taking us to our destination and where we're supposed to be. Many times we are told the intention of globalization was to bring us to the frontier as an African country. But the experience we have had in Africa, cannot be compared. It's as if we are disadvantaged compared with the developed nation, because the trade liberalization did not favor us. When we opened our market for the Western world, we have nothing to trade along with them in order to compete with them. So the trade is one-sided. The negative impacts. The various policies implemented by Nigerian government as liberalization and globalization collaboration and World Bank agenda. For instance, the devaluation of a downstream sector, privatization, liberalization, deregulation, current removals of fuel subsidy, which has brought pains and ashes to Nigeria, due to concomitant effects on the foodstuffs and transportation. As I said earlier, these papers adopted a content analysis. As I said, is ongoing, and we reviewed several journals, articles, and archive materials. This paper is anchored on exploitative called social system theory. Social system theory. I'll be mentioning two major facts in this. It said that the people should get what they want. That second one said that the people should not be forced to do their bidding. What this one is saying that this argument, according to Kamas, that when we have two classes, it's like talking about the bourgeoisies and the proletarians. Now, where the bourgeoisies are the one, we can refer to the bourgeoisie as the Western or developed nations, while the proletarians are the weak or the African country and Nigeria. So when they come to discussion, issues that have to do with trade, liberalization, agreement did not favor, the Black continent for Africa, and it's always one-sided. That is, the bourgeoisies are the one who dictate what is going to be put on the table. Why the weak one in the African one could not make a decision. Of course, they could not make a decision that are favoring to their community. The findings during our review, the study review, reviewed that the idea of globalization and trade liberalization of the world was fashioned and packaged by the Western countries to reap the weaker countries. For instance, the GATT, that is General Agreement on Trade, General Agreement on Trade and Tariff and Trade. Many African countries at that time did not properly study this agreement. And as I said earlier, it is one-sided. Up to now, Africa cannot completely compete with this developed nation in terms of what they have to offer. We are always at the mercy of this developed nation. However, what we produce at times, our market has been flooded to the extent that what we produce, our local people are no longer interested in buying it because of this globalization and trade liberalization effects. In conclusion, the study observed that African countries have liberalized trade, opened up their economy extensively, but lack competitive advantage to reap maximum benefits from the trend of globalization, mainly because of their overdependence on the nations, total reliance on oil growth, and lack of diversification of the economy. Recommendation. I want to say this. That is, I want to say this, please. Can you, okay? African countries should begin the process of democratizing their governments. However, their international partners they are working with in this global world are hardly democratized. Why the democratization process will require the process of the countries in question to be involved in decision making of that concern them. Some big decisions affecting African today are more or less imposed by the global players like the IMF, the World Bank, the Trade Organization, and the GATT agreement. Secondly, it is an irony that these poor countries always run to these developed countries for bailout and succor, which must always come with conditions. There is this saying that who pay the piper dictate the tune. And most cases, when we seek for loan, there must be a condition that are going to be put on the table. And the loan or the agreement or the bail, which it has served as a base to most of the African countries, and we call it poverty alleviations, loans to eradicate poverty. Up to now, African countries and Nigeria still remain the poorest among the poor nations. African leaders must learn to be productive and to learn to manage the limited resources available rather than sell their future countries to the developed nations. Thank you for listening.
Wow. This is thought-provoking and another powerful delivery. And I can imagine the thought, the passion, the concern that was going in the mind of Dr. Sodeinde when he was coming up with these research, because indeed, if we know what we're losing due to our inability to work on all these presentations we've talked about, it may be challenging to have the kind of Africa we desire. And that's why we are putting our heads together to see how we move Africa from where it is to where it should be. And you can see from different disciplinary perspectives how researchers have been able to come up with ideas on how Africa's identity may be protected. This is a very, very good one. From indigenous knowledge, we had 2 presentations on indigenous knowledge. One talked about digital preservation. The other one also talked about how to decolonize. And this is another very good one because it's our thing. If we do not protect what we have, then it means we do not value it. And other people will just come, they like a bait, they do something, and before we knew it, it's gone. And once it's gone, we may not be able to retain it again. And Doctor gave a powerful presentation on literary analysis. And that's another angle in DH that I'm getting to know about. So thank you so much to all our presenters. I wouldn't know if there are people within the room that have questions, contributions, clarification. Do we have people in the room?
Show the camera. Show the camera. Show the camera.
Oh, great. So do we have anybody in the room that wants to ask questions?
Yes.
Oh, great. Oh.
Maybe not questions, but comments.
Oh, good.
I'm so happy to hear all the presentations and to see ways in which virtual and infotech tools are being used to record, to present work in different ways, to also digitalize our sources of the sources we consult and do a lot of creative work that wasn't possible before we had those tools. And I hope that, I know this is a beginning, especially with the AI, which many people are afraid of, but which I was telling one of the people in the room that I use in my teaching. And I encourage my students to use, but I'm also surveilling them. I know when they are, transgressing and plagiarizing. But people act as if AI is the first instance of plagiarizing. Plagiarizing has been with us forever. And every time a new tool comes, people get afraid. I want you to know that the same suspicion that we're using towards AI today is what people were using when books were being produced were being mass produced. People thought that it was dangerous and you shouldn't let everybody have access to books. And any other innovation, you can. So innovations in themselves are neither good or bad. It's what uses we put to them. And I choose to embrace innovation. Plus, I'm biased. My son is a computer science and engineering person, but great. He's an old one now. He graduated in 2005, And then, in order to connect to people who are interested in African studies, because I'm in an institution where it's not a priority, I embraced information technology and the tools that it offered very early. And I had sisters and brothers from everywhere who were interested in the issues that interest me. I've also done research with people who are in far-flung places. I've published books that I ended up editing after we did
in a case it was seminar, in another case it was a symposium, that, you know, we, at that time, things were very rudimentary. So we used email to communicate, you know, but when when Zoom, not Zoom, you know, the early Skype,
Skype,
I've used, you know, so I've used Skype, I've used free conference call and things like that very early. And then a lot of my work is online because I want people to have access to it. I want it to not be behind paywalls. But some of them are behind paywalls because of publishing with reputable publishers that are distinguished and whatever. But when I have a choice and I have a journal, it's online, it's free, but it's peer reviewed. And I fund it because nobody was interested in funding it. And I founded it in 2002. But it's registered with the, the Library of Congress. It's in over 600 libraries. I made it free, you know, but it's a lot of work. My point. And then I wrote an early paper too about what do you call it? Communities without propinquity, that you don't have to be in close proximity with a person to be in community with them. Because that's my experience. I'm a very unwilling migrant, you know, I've been in the US for 43 years.
Great.
So I wanted to be connected to home, and Nigeria is home for me, Lagos especially. I grew up in Lagos. And then I wanted to be connected to people who are interested in the things that excite me, because being in my institution was killing my joy. So let me tell you, I love technology for these reasons. I know some of the malevolent ways in which it can be used, but I love technology. Now that I have grandchildren, you know, my grandkids are learning Yoruba, and one of, you know, the older one is learning Swahili as well from just watching these videos. And these things help to do what I was trying to do with my children. It makes it easier. With my children, I had to buy physical books, and I made sure they could see Black people in books. You know, and actually I get very irritated when people want to illustrate something and they share white people's images with me. I don't want it. I don't need it. I think it's stupid of us to not realize that there's this politics of production of knowledge. And by using those images, by saying that we are all human beings and whatever, people who don't, I'm very sorry, you know, if this sounds bad, but by and large, in terms of how the world works, white people who believe in white supremacy, they don't like us. They don't respect us. They don't think whatever we are producing is useful, except if they put a gloss on it. So these tools help us to be controllers of our own stories, to, you know, also participate in creating knowledge that is accessible to everyone. You know, but it tends to get expensive. I mean, sometimes I think I need to have my head examined because I'm struggling so much. But let me just stop and say, this is wonderful. And I say to each person, please keep on doing what you're doing. Don't be discouraged. And I hope that you get the resources that you need to amplify, to scale up, and to inspire others to follow suit. Because we have this knowledge. We also have a lot of cultural products that we can put out there. But we need to develop this consciousness that we have something to offer. And we need to take back our power and move like confident people into the world and at least dominate African studies, you know. And then people who want to join us and support us and, you know, be respectful are welcome. But I'm just sick and tired of us being perpetually like the underdogs and, you know, complaining and complaining. I'm glad that you're doing something. And I'm glad that the something is interesting and useful And you know, posterity is going to regard people
Of
who are doing this
course.
work very well. So thank you.
Hmm. Oh, thank you so much, Ma. That was thought-provoking, and I'm so happy about your comments, Ma. Somebody is blocking my view. Mommy, which university are you, Ma?
My name is and I teach political science at Brooklyn College. And I've been teaching university people for more than 3 decades. But
Great. Thank you so much, Ma. I'm so happy about your comments. And for all of our presenters, it's just a wonderful one. It's like the whole world is struggling. Everybody is struggling to keep their identities. I tell you, like I shared during the first session today, I was so shocked that the element of indigenous knowledge, especially in language, is even going into extinction in a country like United States. I was shocked. But my studies gave me that findings, and I was like, a lot of effort, money, resources are being deployed into that to ensure that all these values are protected. Thank you so much for that comment. Next person in the room. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, presenters. Thank you for a very engaging section and eye-opening also. My first question is to Dr. Mujida. I was wondering that what would you say about adaptation and literature, like you coined, in changing the ways that we read literature? In your opinion, what are your reflections on it? Then my second question is to Dr. Martina. Yes, thank you very much for the presentation and even for the sample books. But I'm just wondering, like, given your experience in working with publishers, that what would you make of African identity? Is it still rooted in the nuances? Yes, the story is changing. We are seeing more Remi stories, but is it rooted in African nuances, or do we still have some, Eurocentric environments at the background? For instance, is the say the environment, like the pictures, is it still laced with things like maybe teddy bears, Cinderella cakes, or what are you doing to create these nuances of African identity?
Great. Oshigidi. Thank you. Next person. Oh, should we take all the, okay, let's just take all the questions. Okay, next person.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dominic. It's a kind of a question that I would like to direct to Gbemi, right? Yes, when you look at the topic on trade liberalization and globalization, and you are looking at African experience. So from what I can deduce from your presentation, it's like you are trying to be on the side of Africa, while the issue is a global thing. And under this globalization, you have countries like Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Qatar, Malaysia, Singapore. They are doing well, despite this globalization and liberalization of a thing. But Africans, we are not doing well. So my thing is, are you not trying to defend our weakness, maybe our lack of, I don't know how to put it, but when you look at corruption in Africa, you look at what our leaders are doing, then you now compare it with other leaders, you think, you see that it is like we are the one holding ourselves now, using globalization as an excuse. Are you not supporting or defending that concept of African leaders? Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. Next.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My question goes to the first speaker, the person that presented first. How can we preserve indigenous knowledge? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes. One more question. Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Now, this one, I have a very general question as regard to this panel. But as far back as 19 1991 in Africa, especially in Nigeria, we have been talking about decolonialization, decoloniality, and we have not changed. Now see all the presenters also, even including myself. Do we value what we have? Are we not being enveloped with all this global culture? Even we are just a theories. We are not being practical, even in our various houses. That is by the wayside. There is need for we Africans now to have a rethink and to decolonize in the true sense of it. All what you have been saying is just in shambles. Just in shambles. That is that. Now, my specific question goes to my namesake. That's Dr. Shodendi. And that's what we are talking about, globalization. First of all, it's a globalization of nonsense. Going by the quotation of Hoover, the man said, and I quote, that globalization, when we are talking about globalization, is a phenomenon of Northern Hemisphere, that is America, Europe, Japan, and others. What are we talking, Mr. Dr. Shodendi? Africa, we are not part of globalization. We are more or less an appendage. So all what you have said is just a theory. But the problem, how you mentioned the linking, according to Desert, Mazis revenge. But with all these Ghana must go leader we have in Africa, with all these leaders that they don't have visions, we cannot move forward. And we in Africa also, especially in this country, we have bad followership also. See what is happening in our state? We have criminals in the bush. They cannot bring them out with all this technology. They be power. We will continue going hungry. Because we are not proactive also. We don't even take our destiny by the hand. So that is that. So my submission in your paper is that this globalization that you are talking about, we are not part of globalization. Going by the quotation of Roosevelt, is between all those global, all those developed countries. They are being using us as an appendage. Because when we are talking about globalization, all these our ladies also dressing, coloring your head, moving like tolo, all those things, they are yes, sorry to say. And yes, even men. Sorry.
Sorry about that, sir.
But what I'm saying is that when we are talking about globalization, we are talking about internalization of capitals across international boundaries. So all these social, coloring your hair, doing all sorts of things, including sagging and all these things, they are rubbish that will not take us anywhere. So that is that.
Thank you, sir.
Finally, I'm very bitter about all this. That's why it's paining me. But now, finally, my doctor at the X-ray, yes, the yellow lady, Miss. So my question is this. We have seen though we didn't even have a clear view, but we are talking about how can we decolonize ourselves also as Ghana to our children. And then I'll say, the problem still lies within us. Like myself now, I'm a typical Yoruba, but I'm married to an Igbo. So to speak my own indigenous language is a problem because my wife also, she wanted the children also to learn Igbo. So it's more or less, I have to use my discretion by sending my children to some of the good relatives so that they can catch up with the little culture, so to say, before the something is finally lost. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I think our time is fast spent, and it's very, very good with the concerns. You are not bitter, sir. You are just concerned, and it's a good concern because we are losing so many things in Africa. Do we still have questions?
It's not really a question. It's just a quick rider.
Okay. 1 minute, sir.
Okay, since you said 1 minute, I want to clarify that gone were days when we do migration, and now it was forced and cooperative with those that are part of the slave transatlantic operators. And then the tides have changed due to some capitalist and imperialist tendencies, both on the side of the global south and the side of the global north. And now we find people voluntarily migrating. So when you talk about decolonization, the problem has not changed. It has just changed its face. And by face, I mean faces. And when I mean faces, I'm playing on the word PHASE as a face and also as a human face. Now I'm trying to personify the problem just like a human being. So we will need to decolonize continuously. People have been decolonizing. It took some other people to give us the knowledge that we know that globalization is not even working for us. So you have been decolonized to a certain degree to have come to the understanding that this particular one, unless it is indigenized and it works for us and our leaders are able to put their hands on deck, we are not going to have ourselves what we are looking for. And most importantly, I would want us to, when we are looking at this thing, this is scholarship. You cannot be both the strategist, the soldier, the theorist, and the practical whatever. These are thinkers. We are think tanks to be able to put foundations for other people to look at. Not that we will have to embrace it as though it's me. It might not be me. If you had not seen me reading this paper, you might probably be fighting with yourself. So we have to be looking at these papers on the basis of scholarship and how these papers could be impactful. Globalization is very, very important. I will tell you, it's not a in quote bag of rubbish as we are made to perceive. If you have read Kwame Anthony Appiah and the arguments he's been making, and if you can look at what is happening in the globe right now, it's just that we did not most times indigenize this new knowledge and see how it fits. And other people are using the same thing. But when we go back to the idea of leadership, there's a broken cart on the wheel, or a broken spoke on the wheel of our progress, and we have to look at it closely because the one more sentence. All of these arguments we are making and some of the perspectives these panelists have been ascribing to, they have been used in other, not even Nigeria, in some African countries, and it's working. So the problem now is about conscience, and conscience is an open wound and only truth can heal it. So if we can look at maybe Thomas Aquinas thinking about the idea of morality, the idea of conscience, which is mind of man or woman taking moral decisions, maybe we'll come to a conclusion that will be beneficial to all. That's my perspective. But we cannot just throw the baby and the bathwater all together simply because some people are not comfortable.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was profound. And I was going to say that, and I think and thank you for that clarification. I think our elder that spoke the other time, I think he was just concerned about how much research has been done within the certain decades ago, and we've not been able to implement any of these. You can imagine all the presentations we've had today. The problem is not with the researcher. In developed countries, what they do is researchers carry out researches based on the societal problems. Then they make recommendations for the people in power. And that's why in developed countries like United States, you see companies, corporations, big tech companies and all that, pumping huge amount of money into research, because whatever findings they make is what they work with, either to design products or to provide services. Because researchers have direct link with the people to enhance sustainable development. So I think that's the point that got, he said it was painful for him, and I think it's just out of concern. And I think we've had a balanced opinion and submission about all these things. Thank you so much once again, our presenters. What I will do is, because the time is up already, the time is up already, but let me give you 1 minute each to answer each of the questions.
Thank you, sir. I think I have just one question, which is how do we read literature? And I think in 1 minute, I was at the London Book Fair this year, and there was a statistics that the mayor of London read out for Europe and America. And he said 60% of, will I say, the children over there now read books as audio. And he gave the statistics. And so, and I'm sure, of course, because of the way, like you said, globalization, it's still going to come down here. So that is why I've been clamoring and prescribing that before, we get the baggage, we should begin to prepare for the new reading of our literature, which is going to be either in audio or in film. And this is the way AI is working. This is the way media technology is going, and we need to go there as quick as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was good. Next.
All right. Answering my question, we are not justifying the weakness on our part of African leaders, and Nigeria in particular. We look at the recent policies of our government which provoke this thought. The policy of our government is IMF and World Bank driven. That is what is giving us pain. All these shouts we have within the countries, we need to localize, maybe we should stop talking about globalization and start talking about localization. What we have in our own domain here, it is high time we bring it to the international forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a good one. Thank you.
Okay, so let me just quickly answer. He has already clarified and answered during that decolonization is a continuous process. But because it says all these are theories, there was a reason I brought this to prove to you that sometimes we in the town, we carry your theories and we put it to practice. An example of decolonization that is ongoing now is the traditional marriage that has taken its place again. I know couples come from America, they just do registry, and they're doing the full Yoruba engagement party. They're not going to any church wearing any white gown or anything. The same thing with even the gele that we have started trying again. It was not like that a few years ago. The same thing with this. We have taken our identity. It is a work in motion. The same thing with names. None of my children answer English names. They all have traditional African names. If you watch AI, it's the same thing. So it's continuous. When we get there one day, but it's continuous. I don't even think that there's a point. It's just like we say, happiness is not a destination. It's the choice. So we need to do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And on that note, I want to sincerely appreciate everybody.
So I think I do have a question to answer.
Oh, sorry, Elijah. I'm so sorry.
Oh, thank you.
What's
thank
happening?
You. Okay.
We can see.
Yeah, they took the light.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can just use your audio.
Okay. Thank you. Okay,
1 minute.
The question is how to digitize how to preserve our indigenous knowledge. I think basically we have 5 things to do. I think the first thing we need to do is documentation and archiving. We need to also train ourselves, need to educate ourselves. In the documentation and archiving, we have to put all this indigenous knowledge, maybe through interviews, through storytellings in either word formats, audios, and videos. Also, we need to also train ourselves. Then we also need to engage communities and also collaborate with research. Then we utilize our technologies through the designs of applications, repositories, websites, and the likes. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. And thank you so much, everybody, all our teachers, leaders in the academic and professional world. Thank you for adding your wealth of experiences and insights to the topics we're considering today, especially on this panel. It's been very, very great. And I can see the other time our mommy was talking, you know, for somebody that has spent 4 decades in the United States, you can't agree with many of the development and our pace, the pace of development in Africa. We still have a very long way to go. And the challenge we have, fine, we are making effort, but that effort can still be accelerated. And that's the point. One of the challenges we're living ourselves with is it is high time for interdisciplinary collaboration so that we have an African domicile kind of technology. And in the morning, I was citing the example of China. China has a designated social media platform, basically in their language. Now, we may not attain that level like Asia immediately because of language diversity in Africa. In Nigeria alone, we know what language is. But you know, in most part of Asia, they speak a language that almost everybody in the continent can communicate with. But we've got to start somewhere as we move in this space of development in global technology to maintain African identity. Thank you very much, everybody, for being part of this. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. And journey messages to everybody back to our various destinations. Thank you. Homie, I would like to have your email address so that I can reach out to you when you return to the United States.
All right.
I don't know how I'm going to get that. Homie, can you type it for me on the chat? Oh, you are not online.
I have the email on the So I have your email.
Oh, good. Good.
Your email and I'll share you.
Oh, so thank you so much for your time. Thank you, ma.
Your email is sir.
Adebayo.
Yeah, you are John Oluwaseyi Adebayo, right?
Yes.
Okay. Debayo at umw.edu.
UWM.
Yes. Okay, I have the email confirmed. So I'll give it.
Okay. Help me send it. Thank you so much, sir.
What's your